carried out some experiment to understand the difference between the IMO type approval process and what is actually happening in the real-time condition. And moving ahead, what is the role of the sediment? Sediment would typically be the organic and inorganic matter. And how does it affect the filtration efficiency? And in the research that has been carried out, including the USCG paper, it is very clearly told it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to model a CFD for filter operations because nobody knows the spectral analysis of the mud or silt, whatever it is. We don't know what the water contains. It can be organic, can be inorganic. So there are a lot of, I would say, variations. CFD is extremely impossible. A lab CFD can give you some answers, can give you some of the direction in which you can think, but certainly cannot give you a prediction of how the water is going to behave. So with this background, I start my presentation. Can you just go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So my objective was to go for the choking pattern of a wedge wire filter. So the wedge wire filter is basically a triangular wire which is wound over a candle. We can see a photograph of that later. So when you go to filter, there are many types of filter. And in the market, we had to choose one filter to do the experiment. So the choice was a wedge wire filter, which is basically a ball and critch. The same filters that you use in your lube oil and in your fuel oil lines. It is just a wire wound over a frame. It can be circular cross-section or it can be triangular cross-section wire. The one that we are looking at, typically ballast water, is a triangular section. So the water flows between two triangular sections with the flat face facing the outside world. That is the raw water. The water flows through it and the water comes, there are two types of filters. Either the water flows from outside the candle to inside the candle or inside the candle to outside the candle. For basket filters, generally it flows from inside to outside with the suction nozzle in the inner ring. But let me tell you, there are enough designs where the water is direction is reverse. It's all individual patented filters. But end of the day, all these struggle to cope up with the high TSS load. So we are looking at two things over here. How does a filter perform? And second is, finally, we expect the filter to test. It will get choked. So what is the backflushing efficiency? Do all filters backflush equally the same manner in which they're supposed to be? Or is there a variation in some sort of operating system which either increases or reduces the backflushing efficiency? And I limited the scope of this research only to the particle size, which we call as the total suspended solids, TSS. Because if you take, basically you have TSS, which basically is turbidity or opacity of the water, which either affects the filter or affects the opacity, hence the UV intensity, that transparency of water. So TSS comes in these two parameters, and we are looking at more critically the sediment size. This is an untouched parameter in the entire IMO regulation. Does the sediment size play any role in the choking of a filter? So with this objective, I carried out some experiments. And in this introduction from 2004 with the modification in 2017, in this transition, we have seen filters getting stronger. There's a lot of R&D that has happened in the filter industry. The designs of filters have changed. The way the filter is backflushing has changed. But one of the most common philosophies that is being adapted is using of a vacuum pump and using of a discharge conditioning valve. So these two combinations, that is a vacuum basically increases the differential pressure across the filter during the backflushing phase, making the backflushing more effective. And the vacuum pump is literally present in all the filters. And the second concept we spoke about is a filter design, intricate design. The wedge wire is slightly phasing out and mesh screens are entering the market more. So this is the change that we are seeing between 2004 and 2017. And of course, it is given to the owner sometimes to decide which filter he wants to choose. One manufacturer has got 3 approvals. He can choose either, let's say, I'll just give you the name of the filters. He can choose Optimarine uses ball and critch, Filter Safe, Filter X. And the difference of all 3 is a matter of a few $1,000s. Okay? So the choice is given to the owner. He'll naturally choose what is cheap. But what does not operate later on is then owner's problem. So that's the basic difference. There's a lot of evolution of filters between 2004 and 2017. And everything is required to meet a biological standard. So the entire analysis that is being done is, does it meet D2 requirements? Is it biological? Nobody talks about physical standards over here, and that is very important. between 174, that is the old approval standard and the new approval standard, there's absolutely no change in physical parameters. The water parameters are exactly the same which we used about 15 years back. So I just mentioned this. What is written in red is exactly the verbatim which I just mentioned to you. When we did the initial part of research, we found that there's not enough study done for the Indian coastal waters, and most of the coastal work which has been done by research organizations, universities, including NIO, it concentrates more on the biological parameters, not on the physiochemical parameters. Few good papers, including the one which is the port baseline study done by NIO, does have a few parameters, and it does mention total suspended matter, which is the same as TSS. It mentions in some channels like Haldia, Kandla, and you can see the values over here. What is mentioned on the screen is Haldia is anything between 500 to 1036. Remember, this is seasonal, so it is to be done over a period of time. It's not only 1 year, they generally do a 5 years period because you need to get averages over here. And you have for Haldia channel is 500, and you're looking at anything between 162 to 840 for the other one. So there are enough papers establishing a linear relationship between the turbidity, TSS and all that, so let's not get into that part of it. And academic institutions and IoT do not have any sort of an inclination of that this data is going to be useful for the ballast water people. So when you are looking at us trying to solve a problem, okay, my ship is in Chennai, my ship is in Vizag, you have no data of the type of water in that particular area. Okay, so coming back, the seawater, or rather any water, is classified in sediment size as clay, which is typically 2 to 10 micron, silt, which is 10 to 50 micron, and sand, which is above 50 micron. Now this range is slightly variable as per different research papers, but on an average, 2 to 10 micron range is extremely popular in most of the research papers. And if you just look at a water outside, what would be the size that you expect it to enter the sea chest filter would be the first question. If you're expecting 2 to 10 micron and your water meets a 50 micron strainer, would you expect this to be removed from the water? Answer would be no. Remember, the entire ballast water treatment system is designed for a biological process. Now this has nothing to do with biology. This is to do with the physical process, because as engineers we have been facing a problem which is physical in nature, that is choking of the filter. Now this 2 to 10 micron goes into your ballast tanks. And this is something which is known for the last 20 years. People who are operating and coming out of Haldia would surely know how much of sediments are there in the tank when they come out taking ballast from a dirty water port. And when you deballast it, the tank is not 100% clean. Though I'm deviating from my research topic, but please, as for the feedback that we get, when after deballasting water from a dirty water port, you take in good ballast, that fails D2 standards. Not because the water was bad, because the previous water was bad. Now coming back, the most common sizes of filter that you face in the market would be a 20 micron, 40 micron, and 50 micron. 20 micron is slightly expensive, and please be aware that it is not proven 20 micron chokes faster than 40 or 50. When it chokes, all of them choke. Reason? Go back to the first line. We don't know the sediment size. If it is 2 to 10, it will all pass through. If it is 10 to 50, as per the micron size rating, the filter choking actually initiates. And then there are 3 steps of filter choking. First would be the size of the particle first tends to block the passage and tends to reduce the bore size or the pore size. Then smaller and smaller particles start to choke, and on top of these 2 particles comes the clay then, which forms a cake layer that you see. So it's a 3-step process. First step is microparticle, that is particle to the size of filter. Second would be slightly lesser than that, and third would be the slime layer and the clay layer which builds up on top of that, which we call as caking of the filter. So these are the 3 steps that take place, and this is something which is not required to be researched on. This is quite evident in our shore-based research also. And all these filters use a backflushing, which basically makes the water flow in the opposite direction. So we did a bit of research with first starting up a survey, and there were a lot of other reasons for a filter. Apart from filter, there were a lot of reasons for a failure, which not only is captured in my initial Google survey, which we formed with 136 participants from various shipping companies, but also Intertanko, and we have ABS and LR, they all have published papers. So there's no difference in data. We do have problems. One of the problems stated is filter, but that is only 30%. We have another 70% of the problems which is still open for debate, and those problems are getting sorted out as we speak. And one of the most common problems that people will report is we face problems only during ballasting. That's typically because in ballasting, your filter is giving you problems. In deballasting, there is no filter, and you don't know whether the water is D2 or not. It is just going out, no alarms. So you don't know what the fact is, whether you are compliant or not. But since there are no alarms, no reports, or no, I would say, identified reasons that I'm having problem during deballasting. So looking back at ballasting, looking back at only the filter related issues, we look at failures in the challenging water ports. So market survey, this is the statistics. If you look at it, when we ask the students, when we ask the sailors, what is the reason for failure? 44 respondents is port water quality. Then you're looking at ballast water training related issues and reliability. So majority of the people believe that the water is an issue, and remember this is the uptake phase we're looking at. The most common reason for the plant to shut down, and there you come back to filter related. So operation related as well as shutdown related, both are either water related or filter related. And there's an interconnect between these two, as we know. So outcome of the survey, the first one, ports with recurring ballast water failures are associated with turbid waters. That is, when we do a mapping of where the plant is failing, where the people are required to bypass, we find all these are turbid waters. A part of the statistics is already there at MEPC, submitted by Intertanko. In most of the cases, the ship staff did not have enough time, so they literally bypass and run it, landing up with more sediments in the tank. The filter are of varied designs, and they are found to clog at a given port, and filter design does not really matter. Most of the filters have basically clogged. And it's also observed that some particular operating condition, some particular way of operating leads to a greater filter choking. So experimental approach, what I did was, I basically broke down the entire, it was a 50 micron filter that I had taken, and I took sediments of three sizes. One was less than 50 micron. I had a C which is of 53 micron. Then we took 53 to 75 micron particles, and we took above 75 micron, that is 75 to 125 micron. So I had three sample waters, one having less than 53 micron sediments, one between 53 and 75, and one above the 75, which is 75 to 125. So we had three water tanks with three runs with three sample waters. And this is what I did, variation of TSS. The issue over here is you're looking at micron sizes over here. You will not find this in any MEPC document. MEPC will say only ppm or milligram per liter. 50 milligram per liter, what size? Not mentioned. So what is the reality? IMO is wanting you to test the water at 50 milligram per meter cube, which is basically per liter, which is basically 50 ppm. And the reality is, I've already shown you Haldia, Kandla, and this is the extract from MEPC, where you're testing at 50 and real-time water conditions. We'll see quite soon. I've taken 53 micron, 75 micron, 125 micron, and all these are above that 50 milligram requirement. So I'm keeping my TSS load above 50 milligram, but I'm varying only my micron size rating of my particles. So we used groundwater through standbed filtration, and typically it is less than 5 micron because using ultrafiltration. In this, we put the sediments which was prepared using these serial sieves. We weighed the particles and put it in the water, and we ran through the system. And this was a setup. This was a setup What you see over here is the actual filter from plant, which is ball and crash. From there, we took out one candle, and you can see the candle over here. This candle is the wedge wire. What we do now is each of the filter candles are properly cleaned. Since we are doing 3 runs, we took 3 candles, cleaned all of them properly, make sure that everything is flowing, and then we had a rig up. You can see 2 tanks. One is the raw water tank with all the sediments in it, and second is the water which is after after filtration. And this was the experiment setup. The candle was put inside a unit, and the system was run. So what were the results? So this was the system, the mimic diagram, and we ran it in 3 steps. So each run consisted of a normal operation of filtration, a back flushing, and again a filter of operation without opening and cleaning. So every system was run, every water content of below, that is clay content, what you call as the less than 50 micron, 50 to 75 micron, and 75 to 120 micron, we did 3 runs each. Okay, so this is the dimensions of the filter candle, and this is basically to understand what's the flow rate. And as the filter gets choked, remember the flow rate across the filter starts to increase, and it starts to choke faster. And also what happens is when the differential pressure across the filter increases, the pressure on the other side of filter decreases, which means your backflushing efficiency actually decreases. To compensate for that, they have a reverse valve which they basically close to increase the back pressure, and vacuum starts off. So I'll come back to the final concluding slide of the results. So each flow with each micron size, we ran it. The clean water results. Okay. So this is where the interest comes from. So below 53 microns, my clean filter ran for 109 seconds. 53 to 75, run 115 seconds. 75 to 125, ran for 145 seconds.